The morning sun filtered across the deck of morning light, lighting up the worn wood beneath my bare feet. I ran my hand over the wheel where Adam used to stand, hearing his laughter in the back of my mind. In a few hours, I would have to hand over the keys to my parents, and my sister, letting them turn our sanctuary into a stage for Grace's wedding. "It's time to let it go," Hannah, my mother, had said, voice soft and sharp at the same time. But letting go of Adam's dream was never part of the plan. I was Hannah Miller, 35, standing barefoot on the deck of the yacht Adam and I had built with every dollar and dream we had saved. Morning Light wasn't just a boat. It was our freedom, our sanctuary, our plan to live a life on our terms, away from offices and deadlines, drifting from Key West to the Carolinas, anchored under sunsets with coffee in hand. But to my family, it was nothing more than a shiny asset ready to be sold for a quick check. I could hear them before I saw them. My mother's voice, sharp but calm, calling for me from the dock. Margaret was 62, her hair pulled back, her designer sunglasses hiding the way she looked at me with disappointment. Charles, my father, 65, stood next to her, shifting, impatiently checking his watch, as if this was another business deal he needed to close before lunch. Grace was already taking photos on her phone, twirling her blonde hair with one hand while she planned her next post. She was 28, and everything in her world was a stage ready to be shared and celebrated. She laughed, calling out, "This is going to be perfect for the wedding, Hannah. Just imagine the pictures." I didn't answer. I walked slowly across the deck, brushing my hand over the rail. Adam had sanded and stained with care over the teak boards we had spent nights varnishing while we listened to music and argued about what port we would sail to next. I could almost hear his laugh, that low, reassuring sound that made me feel safe even in storms. Grace was stepping onto the boat now, her sandals loud against the wood. "It's even prettier in person," she said, wide-eyed, turning around with her phone pointed at herself, snapping another selfie. "You know, this is exactly what we need for the bridal shower. Everyone will be so jealous." My mother climbed up behind her, holding onto the railing like it was too beneath her to touch. "Hannah, let's get this over with," she said. "There's no need to drag it out." I turned, looking at the three of them standing on the deck that still smelled like the ocean breeze Adam loved. "It's not just a boat," I said quietly. My father sighed, stepping forward. "Hannah, it's just a yacht. It's a piece of property. It's time to let it go." Grace chimed in. "And you're doing the right thing, hon. Seriously, I appreciate it so much. This is going to make the wedding amazing." I felt the words hit me like small, sharp stones, but I didn't let them see it. I stepped back to the wheel, pressing my palm against it, letting my thumb trace the scratch Adam had made by accident the first day we brought Morning Light back from the shipyard. The air was warm, but I felt cold. I thought about the way Adam would stand here steering us into the sunrise, turning to smile at me with that look in his eyes, the one that said we were exactly where we were supposed to be. I kept my eyes on the horizon, letting them talk, letting them plan, letting them smile about the future they thought they were building for Grace. I stayed quiet, feeling the boat rock gently under my feet, reminding me that this was still mine, that it would always be ours. Grace's laughter cut through the warm air as she leaned over the rail, pointing her phone toward the sunrise. "Oh my God, look at this light. It's going to be perfect for the bridal shower. Everyone will die when they see this." She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to her followers, her world of constant validation and praise. I watched her frame the shot, flipping her hair, practicing the soft smile she used when she wanted people to adore her. Margaret moved to stand beside her, adjusting her gold bracelet, looking around the deck like she was inspecting a product before closing the sale. "This will make a wonderful setting for the family photos." "Grace," she said, her tone warm, rehearsed. "It's just what we need for the wedding." Charles stayed near the steps, glancing over the water, tapping a message on his phone. He didn't want to be here. He hated the ocean, hated the way it made him feel small and out of control. Grace turned, leaning against the rail, her eyes lighting up when she looked at me. "You really did a great job with this, Hannah. I mean, I get it now. Why you loved it. But I promise we'll take care of it. Take care of it." I almost laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. She had no idea what it meant to take care of something you built with your own hands, something you sacrificed sleep and money and tears for. Margaret placed a hand on my arm, light but firm. "It's time to let it go, Hannah. Adam would want you to move on." I looked at her hand, the polished nails, the diamond ring that caught the sunlight. She had never understood. Adam never understood us. She never tried to. Grace kept talking, spinning around the deck, pointing out where she would put the flowers, where the photographer should stand. I was thinking about a sunset dinner right here, maybe with lanterns. It'll be the highlight of the wedding. People will talk about it for years. People would talk, that was all she cared about. Appearances, envy, likes on a screen. She didn't see the hours Adam spent fixing the engine, the nights we huddled under a blanket on this very deck listening to the waves, whispering dreams that only the stars heard. I moved away from Margaret's touch, walking toward the helm again, letting my hand rest on the wheel. I could see Adam's reflection in my memory, standing here turning to wink at me as he guided us out of the harbor. Grace's voice drifted back to me. "You'll come to the wedding, right? I want you there. I want people to see how close we are." I turned to look at her, at the hopeful smile she wore like a mask. "We'll see," I said softly. Margaret sighed, exchanging a glance with Charles, who finally looked up from his phone. "Hannah, we've talked about this. It's done. It's for the best." They were waiting for me to hand over the keys, the final surrender. I slipped my hand into my pocket, feeling the cool metal press against my palm. I wasn't ready to give it up, not yet, not to them. Grace stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I really appreciate what you're doing, you know. I know this was hard for you." She thought she was being kind. She thought she understood. I looked past her over the water where the sunlight was breaking into diamonds on the waves. The boat rocked gently again, reminding me this was still mine, that Adam was still here, that what we built didn't die just because they decided it was time to move on. Grace turned away, pulling her phone back out. "I need to get a few more shots before the light changes." Margaret and Charles stepped aside, giving her space, letting her work, her angles, her stories, her perfect life. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in the salty air, letting it fill my lungs, grounding me. I opened them and looked back at the family that never understood what this place meant. I raised my eyes to the sky, the blue so clear, it almost hurt, and whispered so only I could hear. "Adam, today it begins. It's time for you to grow up, Hannah." My mother's voice cut through the cabin, sharp and smooth like the edge of a blade. She placed a thick stack of papers on the table, letting her hand rest on top of them as if to anchor them there. I stood across from her, my hands damp against my jeans, the soft creak of the yacht beneath us, the only sound for a moment. Grace sat beside her, her eyes red like she'd been crying, but her lips twitched as if she wanted to smile. Charles stood behind them, both arms crossed, jaw tight, his eyes flickering from the window to the floor. "It's time to let it go," Margaret said, her eyes locking on mine. "You've held onto this fantasy long enough." Grace sniffled, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, her engagement ring catching the sunlight as she moved. "I'm not trying to take it away from you, Han. We really need this. The wedding would be perfect with morning light." I didn't answer. My eyes fell to the papers under my mother's hand. Contracts, numbers, lines that turned dreams into transactions. Margaret lifted her hand, sliding the papers toward me. "There are taxes you haven't been paying. Fees for the slip, insurance, maintenance. This is a burden, Hannah, one Adam left you with." Adam's name in her mouth made my chest tighten. She never said his name with warmth, not even at his funeral. Grace leaned forward, her voice soft, trying to sound gentle. "You can't keep living in the past, Han. I know you loved him, but it's been 2 years. Don't you want to move on?" I felt the heat rise to my cheeks, but I kept my voice calm. "This isn't about me moving on." Margaret let out a breath as if she was the one exhausted by this conversation. "It's about doing what's right for the family. Grace is starting a new chapter, and you can help her do it right." I turned away, looking out the window at the water, the gentle sway of the boat keeping me steady when nothing else could. "Brian will walk you through it," Charles said, his first words since stepping inside. Brian Miller, our family's lawyer, stepped forward, holding a pen. His face was neutral, practiced, as he placed it next to the papers. "It's standard, Hannah. It's a clean transfer. You'll be free of the debts tied to the yacht, and your parents will handle everything. Free." That was how they wanted to spin it. Free from the weight of Adam's dreams. Free from the last piece of him that still felt alive. Grace's voice broke into a shaky smile. And you'll be there for the wedding rite. We'll take such good care of Morning Light. I promise. I really looked at her as she reached for my hand. Her eyes were shining, her smile practiced the same one she used when she wanted something. I pulled my hand back gently, sitting down in the chair as Brian flipped to the page I needed to sign. My hand hovered over the pen, the air thick around me. In the corner of my mind, I could hear Adam's voice, soft and warm, the way he used to speak to me when I was afraid. I remembered the way he laughed as he fixed the engine late at night, his hands covered in grease, telling me we were building a future no one could take. But they were taking it now. My hand closed around the pen. I pressed it to the paper, signing my name, each letter feeling like a piece of me tearing away. The final stroke of my last name hit the page and the room was silent. Brian nodded, sliding the papers back into his briefcase. "That's it," he said. "It's done." Grace clapped her hands together, tears falling, but her smile wide. "Thank you, Han. You don't know what this means." I pushed back from the table, standing slowly, feeling the weight in my chest press harder than before. Margaret stood too, reaching to touch my arm, but I stepped back, shaking my head. "I need some air." They let me walk past them, past Brian, past the papers that now belonged to them, and stepped out onto the deck. The sunlight was bright, the breeze warm against my face, but I felt cold. I leaned against the rail, gripping it until my knuckles turned white, letting the soft roll of the water keep me steady. I had signed their papers, but in that moment, I knew this wasn't over. I turned away from the rail, wiping at my face, catching tears I didn't remember letting fall. The deck felt different now, like the air had shifted, like the boat already knew she was no longer mine. Grace's laughter carried from inside, that high, sweet sound she used when she was getting exactly what she wanted. I heard her telling Margaret how perfect the yacht would be for photos, how the rehearsal dinner would feel so glamorous. I stepped back inside, and all three of them turned to look at me. Margaret's eyes softened, pretending to be gentle. "This is for the best, Hannah," she said. "You'll see." Grace walked over, her heels clicking against the wood, reaching out to hug me. Her arms felt light, empty, as she whispered, "Thank you, Han. You're really helping us. I'll make sure everyone knows how much you did for me." I didn't hug her back. I let her hold me, her perfume filling the small space, the same floral scent she wore to family dinners when she wanted everyone's attention. She pulled away, brushing her hair behind her ear, eyes shining. Charles cleared his throat, his voice flat. "We'll take care of everything from here." Brian stepped forward again, the briefcase in his hand, checking the papers, flipping through them with careful precision. "We'll file these today," he said. "It will be official within the week." I nodded, but I didn't trust my voice to answer. Margaret gave a small smile, the kind she used when she closed a charity event with her name on the banner. "You can stay for lunch, Hannah. We can talk about what's next for you." I shook my head. "I need to pack up some of my things." Grace stepped forward again, her eyes pleading. "Please don't be mad, Han. You're still coming to the wedding, right?" I looked at her, at the way she tilted her head, her bottom lip trembling like she practiced in the mirror. I forced myself to speak softly. "We'll see." I walked past them, past the table where the papers still lay, the ink from my signature barely dry. Every step felt heavy, but each one brought me closer to the small cabin Adam and I once shared at the back of the boat. I closed the door behind me, shutting out their voices, letting the quiet settle around me. The air smelled like salt and old wood, and I let my hand run along the shelf where Adam kept our coffee mugs, the chipped one I used, the dark blue one he loved. I knelt down by the small built-in dresser, pulling the bottom drawer open, moving aside a stack of old charts and a rolled-up sweatshirt. My fingers found the edge of the hidden panel. Adam had installed a small compartment no one else knew existed. The latch clicked open, and there it was. A small metal box cold in my hands as I lifted it out, setting it carefully on the bed. I sat down, letting the boat sway beneath me, grounding me. My hands shook as I opened the lid. Inside, on top, was a single envelope, my name written in Adam's handwriting, strong and clear. Beneath it, a folded piece of paper, the one he made me promise to read if I ever felt lost, if things ever fell apart. I picked it up, holding it against my chest for a moment, breathing in deeply. Adam's words echoed in my mind, the last conversation we had about the future, about what we were building, about how he would protect me even if he wasn't here. I slipped the envelope into my pocket, feeling its weight against me, grounding me. I closed the box, sliding it back into the hidden space, covering it with the old charts again. Standing up, I looked around the small room, the sunlight pouring through the small window, catching the edge of the bed, the reflection dancing across the floor. I reached up, touching the photograph of Adam and me taped to the wall, the one from the day we first took morning light out on the water. His smile was the same one that told me everything would be okay. I walked out of the cabin, stepping back onto the deck, feeling the breeze against my face. Margaret, Charles, and Grace were waiting near the gangway, talking quietly, their voices blending with the sound of the water hitting the hull. They didn't notice me at first. As I walked past them, my steps steady, the envelope safe in my pocket. I didn't look back as I stepped onto the dock, the boards creaking under my feet, the salt air sharp in my lungs, clearing my mind. I kept walking, the sound of the waves behind me, each step a promise to Adam, to myself, that this wasn't over. Not yet. The night air was sharp, and somewhere deep inside I knew this wasn't over. I climbed back onto morning light, moving quietly across the deck, letting the soft creak of the boards under my feet remind me she was still here, still breathing. The marina lights flickered on the water, broken gold lines swaying with the tide. I sat down near the helm, pulling my jacket tighter, staring out at the dark water. I let my hand rest on the wheel, remembering Adam's hands on top of mine, guiding me, laughing when I turned too sharply. "You're not planning to let them take everything, are you, Hannah?" I turned quickly, my breath catching before I saw him. Captain Mike stood near the stern, hands in his pockets, his eyes steady in the low light. His jacket was old, the cuffs frayed, the smell of salt and engine oil clinging to him like always. "Mike," I said, my voice low, trying to steady the sudden rush in my chest. He stepped forward, boots silent against the deck, looking around before meeting my eyes. "Thought I'd find you here," he said. "Figured you wouldn't leave her alone tonight." I didn't answer. I looked back at the water, letting it move, letting it breathe when I couldn't. Mike moved closer, sitting across from me, elbows resting on his knees. "You know, Adam loved this boat, but he loved what it meant for you more." I closed my eyes, feeling the words hit places I was trying to keep quiet. "He told me once," Mike continued, "that if anything happened, I was supposed to look after you. Make sure you didn't give up." I opened my eyes, looking at him, at the way the lines around his eyes deepened when he spoke. "It's done, Mike," I said softly. "They have the papers." Mike let out a small laugh, shaking his head. "Paperwork doesn't mean a damn thing if your heart's still here." I didn't know how to answer that, so I stayed quiet. A soft sound made me turn. Emma stood at the steps, holding her phone, her hair pulled back, her eyes bright in the lantern glow. She was young, but her gaze was steady. "I've been taking videos," she said, stepping onto the deck. "Little ones. The sunrise on the water, the way the ropes sway when the tide comes in." I frowned, confused. "Why?" Emma looked down at the deck, then back at me. "Because this is your story, Hannah. And stories don't end just because someone says they do." She moved closer, showing me a clip on her phone. The deck in the early morning, the lights soft, the boat rocking gently, the world quiet and full. Adam's laugh in the background, a quick flash of him waving at the camera. I reached for the phone, holding it carefully, letting the image play again. Adam's voice, his smile, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. Mike leaned back, folding his arms. "You think Adam would want you to walk away?" I shook my head, my eyes still on the screen. "Number." "Then don't," Emma said softly. I looked up at her, at the way she stood there, firm and sure, and felt something settle in me. I slipped the phone back into her hand, letting out a breath I didn't know I was holding. We sat there in the quiet, the lantern between us, the water moving against the hull, reminding me that the world was still here, waiting for me to decide what came next. "You're not gonna let them take everything, are you?" Hannah, Mike's voice cut through the quiet, grounding me as I looked up from the soft sway of the water. He stood near the helm, his silhouette strong under the lantern glow, hands tucked into the pockets of his old jacket. He stepped closer, the boards creaking under his boots. "I've known you too long to think you're walking away." I let out a breath, hugging my arms around myself. "They have the papers, Mike. It's done." He shook his head, giving a small, rough laugh. "Paperwork doesn't mean you stop fighting." I turned my gaze back to the dark water, the reflection of the dock lights rippling in gold lines. I didn't answer, letting the silence speak. Emma moved forward, stepping lightly across the deck, her phone in her hand. I posted a clip of morning light at sunrise, she said, her voice careful. People said it looked like hope. I looked at her at the way her eyes glowed in the lantern light. Hope, I repeated, letting the word taste bitter and warm on my tongue. Emma crouched down in front of me, holding up her phone. You can't let them take this away, Hannah. I shook my head, blinking hard. It's not that simple. Mike sat down on the bench across from me, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. Adam didn't build this for you to hand it over, not to them. His name pulled at something deep inside me, something that felt like breath on a cold morning. Emma scrolled on her phone and turned the screen to me. It was a video, shaky but clear, the boat glowing under the early sun, the water lapping softly. In the background, Adam's laugh, warm and low, calling my name. My hand flew to my mouth as the sound hit me, tearing through the numbness in my chest. Emma's voice was gentle. You still have him here. Mike stood, moving toward the cabin, pulling open the small locker near the steps. He left something for you, he said, pulling out a weathered duffel bag. I stood slowly, my hands trembling as I took the bag from him, unzipping it carefully. Inside was a thick envelope, my name on it in Adam's strong handwriting. I sank down onto the bench, pulling the envelope into my lap, feeling its weight as I opened it. Inside were folded papers and a worn map with red ink circles and notes in the margins. I opened the papers, scanning the familiar handwriting. City permits, legal filings, notes about the San Marco Harbor project. Words like mooring rights, ownership, and protected leapt off the page. Emma leaned in, her eyes wide. What is it? Mike crossed his arms, a slow smile spreading across his face. Looks like Adam was planning ahead. My eyes blurred as I read, flipping through each page. Adam had separated the mooring rights from the yacht, filing them under a protected trust in my name. The slip was mine. The right to dock Morning Light was mine, no matter who held the papers for the boat. A shaky laugh slipped out, the sound foreign and real in the quiet. He did it, I whispered. He protected her. Emma's grin was bright, tears shining in her eyes. Hannah, this means they can't use the yacht if they can't dock it. Mike's chuckle was soft. Smart man, that Adam. I held the papers to my chest, feeling the weight lift, feeling the warmth of hope burn in the cold that had settled around me for so long. Emma squeezed my hand, her excitement buzzing in the air. What are you going to do? I looked out over the water, the moonlight dancing on the dark waves, the promise of a fight burning in my chest. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to David Chen's contact, and typed out the words with steady hands. I need your help. It's time. Grace posted a story on Instagram, her voice bright, her laughter bubbling over the background music. Yacht party for the bridal shower. Thanks to my sweet sister for making it happen. I watched it from my small apartment, the screen lighting up my dark room, her face glowing in the sunlight on Morning Light's deck. She panned the camera around, showing off the champagne glasses, the carefully arranged flowers, her friends in designer sunglasses holding up glasses and shouting. She turned the camera back to herself, flipping her hair. We're making memories on my yacht, you guys. I can't wait for the wedding. My yacht. The words stung sharp and cold. She never built it. She never scrubbed the deck until her hands were raw, never fell asleep in the cabin listening to the soft hum of the water. She didn't know how Adam had held me on the bow, telling me this was our forever. In the background of the video, I caught a glimpse of Margaret and Charles stepping onto the deck, shaking hands with friends, laughing as they pointed out details of the boat. Margaret's hand swept across the horizon, her smile wide. She's finally free from the burden, Margaret said to someone off camera, her voice carrying clearly. We saved her, really. They didn't see themselves as thieves. They saw themselves as heroes, rescuing me from a life I chose, a life I loved. Emma was standing in the doorway, holding her phone, her jaw tight. She's going live again, she said, sliding down to sit beside me. Grace's live stream flickered on the screen, showing her standing in the middle of the deck, her hand extended, the diamond on her finger catching the light. Can you believe this ring? She said, giggling. And the best part, we're taking Morning Light out for our honeymoon. We deserve it. Emma let out a low laugh, shaking her head. She has no idea. I didn't respond, saving the videos, downloading each one, cataloging them. Grace's face, her words, the way she moved through the boat like it was hers. Evidence, every moment, every boast. They think I'm done. I whispered the words barely leaving my lips. Emma looked at me, her eyes clear. They don't know you, Hannah. The notification pinged on my phone. A message from David. Meet me tomorrow. We're ready. I locked my phone, setting it down, letting the glow fade into darkness. I leaned back against the couch, closing my eyes, letting the soft hum of the city outside fill the room. Adam would have hated this. The spectacle, the bragging, the way they used morning light as a prop for their vanity. He built her for freedom, for quiet mornings, for starlit nights with the world open and endless. Not for this. I stood, moving to the small desk in the corner, pulling out the folder David had given me. I flipped through the papers, reading the lines over and over, the words sinking in. Mooring rights, protected trust, legal ownership, all under my name. Emma crossed the room, setting her phone down beside me, her hand resting on my shoulder. You're going to take it back. I nodded, flipping to the map Adam had marked, the red circles showing the new dock expansions, the highlighted notes about the San Marco Harbor project. It's time, I said softly. We spent the rest of the night gathering documents, printing records, organizing the video files. Emma's hands were quick, efficient, her focus sharp. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. I watched her as she worked, her determination reminding me of Adam, of the way he would smile when we figured out how to fix something on the boat together, when we solved a problem no one else could. The soft light of dawn was breaking through the blinds when Emma's phone lit up with an alert. She picked it up, her eyes going wide. Hannah, she said, turning the screen toward me. The news headline scrolled across the bottom of the live broadcast. San Marco announces $1.2 billion marina redevelopment project. I stared at the screen, the words burning into me, the fight lighting up in my chest. It was time. Emma didn't say a word as she lowered her phone, but her eyes were alive, sharp, with the same fire I felt in my chest. They have no idea what's coming, she whispered. I nodded, grabbing my jacket and the folder, my hands steady now, every step grounded by the weight of Adam's plan, by the promise I made him. We left the apartment as the first light of morning cracked over San Marco, the streets, quiet, the air crisp with salt and the promise of change. We walked down the marina, past the empty slips, past the old docks that would soon be gone, replaced by glass and steel and billion-dollar promises. Morning light sat at the dock, bright against the pale water, the flag fluttering in the soft breeze. Grace was on the deck, phone in hand, her laughter loud echoing across the water. Her friends surrounded her, holding mimosas, their designer sunglasses catching the sun. She lifted her phone, turning it toward the water, her voice ringing out. Say hello to my yacht, everyone, my yacht. The words stung, but they didn't shake me. Emma pulled out her phone, recording quietly from the dock, her lens steady, capturing Grace's wide smile, the way she waved, the way she bragged about her honeymoon plans on morning light. Margaret and Charles stood at the stern, shaking hands with people I didn't recognize, neighbors, friends, people from their country club, all here to admire what they thought was theirs. Margaret's voice was clear, ringing with pride as she spoke. She was drowning with this boat, Margaret said, her hand on Grace's back. We saved her, really. She needed to let go. Charles laughed, nodding. We helped her move on. She can finally live. Emma's hand tightened around her phone, her knuckles white. I reached over, resting my hand over hers, steadying us both. They don't know, I said quietly. Emma nodded, her jaw set. They're going to. Grace turned, catching sight of us on the dock, her smile faltering for a moment before she waved. Hannah, you came, I didn't move. I watched her, the way she tilted her head, the diamond on her hand flashing as she tucked her hair behind her ear. I wanted you to see how beautiful it is, she shouted, laughter bubbling up again. We're making so many memories here, Hannah. Thank you. Her words were sweet honey dripping with poison. She turned back to her friends, lifting her phone again, the screen reflecting the sunlight. Emma lowered her phone, her eyes on me. You ready? I took a breath, looking up at morning light, the boat that held every promise Adam and I made, every piece of freedom we built every night under the stars. That was truly ours. Yes, I said. Emma slipped her phone into her pocket, standing taller beside me. Then let's take it back. I turned, walking back down the dock, the sound of Grace's laughter behind me, the sunlight warm on my back, the weight of the folder in my hand grounding every step. When we reached the end of the dock, David was waiting, leaning against his car, the morning sun glinting off his glasses. He looked up, his face calm-focused. "It's happening," he said. I handed him the folder, the papers. Adam left the proof of the mooring rights, the filings, the maps, every piece we needed. David flipped through them quickly, his lips pressing into a thin line. "This is solid," he said. "They don't have a clue." I looked back at morning light, at the people celebrating on her deck, at the life they thought they were building on something they didn't own. "They will," I said. David closed the folder, tucking it under his arm. "The city's announcement will send buyers swarming," he said. "Developers will want the slips, the rights, the access. You hold the key, Hannah." I felt the breeze off the water, cool and sharp, the smell of salt and promise. The fight was here. The moment Adam prepared me for was here. The television in a shop window flickered to life, the morning news playing quietly, the headlines scrolling across the bottom. City of San Marco announces $1.2 billion marina redevelopment project. Emma let out a slow breath, her eyes wide as she looked at me. The world shifted, and the game truly began. "We're going to sell the yacht for 5 times what we paid." Grace's voice was sharp, excited, cutting through the quiet of the room. I could almost see her pacing in the living room of my parents' house, her phone in one hand, waving the other as she spoke. Margaret's laughter followed, warm and smug, while Charles's deeper voice rumbled with agreement. They thought they had won. Grace was already talking about the wedding dresses she would buy, designer gowns flown in from New York, the shoes, the flowers, the photo shoots on the sand. Margaret chimed in about a new house by the beach, the kind with glass walls and white furniture where she would host garden parties. I sat in my small kitchen, the phone on speaker, listening to them plan a future they believed was certain. Charles cleared his throat. "I spoke with 2 brokers this morning. They said the value will skyrocket once the marina expansion starts." Grace's laugh was bright, almost manic. "We're going to be so rich, Mom. Everyone will see." I closed my eyes, letting the words wash over me, letting the anger settle into something cold, something steady. The first call came back that afternoon. Margaret answered on speaker, her voice sweet. "Hello, thank you for calling back. We're excited to move forward." The broker's voice was firm, professional. "Mrs. Richardson, I'm afraid there's an issue with the listing. The paperwork shows that the yacht does not have a valid mooring right in San Marco." Margaret's laugh was sharp, confused. "That's impossible. We own the boat." "Yes, but without the slip rights we cannot list this yacht for our premium buyers. It's essentially unsellable in this market." The call ended with Margaret's stunned silence. Grace's voice rose next, high and shaking. "That can't be right. There has to be a mistake." But the calls kept coming. Each broker, each agent, each luxury consultant, all saying the same thing. No mooring rights, no legal slip, no sale. Grace's perfect world began to crack. I watched her social media quietly, her stories shifting from bright, airy celebrations to frantic explanations, her voice trembling as she tried to spin the news. "They're just jealous," she told her followers. Her smile forced her eyes too wide. "We're working it out." But the comments started rolling in. People asking why she bragged about a yacht she couldn't dock. Asking if the wedding would even happen. Asking if she lied. Emma sat across from me, her laptop open, saving the stories, the comments, the videos of Grace trying to hold herself together. "They're falling apart," Emma said softly, a small smile pulling at her lips. I didn't smile. I felt the weight of it, the truth of what Adam had set in motion. This wasn't about revenge for him. It was about protecting what we built, even if it meant letting them break themselves on their own greed. The calls came next. Margaret first, her voice tight. "Hannah, we need to talk." I didn't answer. Then Charles, his message clipped, controlled. "Call us back." Then Grace, crying, her voice breaking. "Please, Han. We need your help, please." I sat in the quiet of my apartment, the boat keys resting on the table, the folder of legal documents beside them. The marina expansion was everywhere now, on the news, in the papers, on every screen. The world was shifting around them, and for the first time they needed me. For the first time they were asking, not demanding. I picked up my phone, typing out the message slowly, each word a promise kept. "Set a meeting." At the lawyer's office. Grace called within minutes, her voice sharp, cutting through the line like glass. "Hannah, what is going on?" Why are they saying we can't sell? I listened to her breathing hard, hearing the tremble under her anger. I let the silence stretch, letting her feel it. They're saying the yacht doesn't have docking rights, she snapped. That it's worthless without it. This is your fault, I almost laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. You should talk to your lawyer, Grace. She went quiet, the silence heavy. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They told everyone we were selling. We've already planned everything. I looked out the window, the city moving quietly below, the morning light soft over the rooftops. You should have read the paperwork. She started to speak, but her voice cracked. Please, Han, we can't lose this. For the first time, she sounded small. We'll talk at the lawyer's office, I said, ending the call. I set the phone down, breathing in, letting the calm settle over me, letting the promise I made Adam anchor me. The next morning, I walked into the law office with David beside me, the folder of documents under his arm. His steps were even, his eyes steady, the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what was coming. Margaret and Charles were already there, sitting in the glass conference room, whispering sharply to each other. Margaret's face was pale, her hands twisting the strap of her purse. Charles looked tired, older, his jaw tight. Grace was pacing, her phone in her hand, her hair pulled back, her eyes puffy like she hadn't slept. When I stepped in, Grace froze. Hannah, you have to fix this. I didn't respond. I sat down, letting David place the documents on the table, letting the silence work. Margaret cleared her throat, forcing a small smile. Hannah, dear, we need to sort this out. There's been a misunderstanding. Charles spoke next, his voice low, controlled. We need you to sign over the mooring rights. So we can sell. Grace's eyes were pleading, her voice breaking. Please, Han. I'm begging you. I looked at them, the family who had taken everything, who had turned my life into a transaction, who had celebrated when they thought I was defeated. They didn't understand. I leaned forward, folding my hands, letting my words come out calm, clear, each one a nail in the coffin of their plans. You don't own Morning Light's dock rights, I said. Adam made sure of that. Margaret's mouth opened, but no words came. Charles looked like he wanted to argue, but David slid the papers across the table. Everything is here, David said, his voice even. The trust, the filings. The separation of the slip rights from the vessel. Filed, recorded, and protected. Grace let out a sob, dropping into the chair beside Margaret. This isn't fair, she whispered. I looked at her, letting the hurt settle into something harder. No, Grace. It's just the truth. Margaret's eyes were sharp, but they were wet, tears clinging to the edges. What do you want, Hannah? I sat back, letting the question hang, letting them sit in the fear they created, letting them see that for the first time they didn't hold the power. The world outside was moving, the city alive, the marina growing into something bigger, something that would reshape everything. And for the first time they needed me. When I walked into David's office, Grace shot up from her chair, her voice cracking. What did you do, Hannah? Her eyes were wild red from crying, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Margaret sat beside her, her face pale, her hands clutching a crumpled tissue. Charles was silent in the corner, staring at the floor, shoulders slumped, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. David stood near the window, calm, the morning light behind him, the folder in his hands. Grace stepped closer, her hands shaking as she pointed at me. You ruined everything. Do you know what people are saying? Do you know what you've done to us? I didn't answer her. I sat down across from them, folding my hands in my lap, letting the silence settle around us like a tide pulling back. Margaret cleared her throat, her voice tight. Hannah, we need to discuss a solution. This has gone too far. David opened the folder, pulling out the documents, laying them on the table one by one, each page a quiet reminder of the truth. Morning Light slip rights were separated from the vessel by Adam Richardson, David said, his voice steady. They were placed in a protected trust under Hannah's name. The paperwork is clear, recorded, and legally binding. Grace let out a strangled cry, sinking back into her chair, covering her face with her hands. This was supposed to be my wedding, my life, everything I worked for, she sobbed. Margaret reached over, trying to soothe her, but her own hands were shaking. Please, Hannah, Margaret said, her voice softer now, almost begging. We can find a way to fix this. We can come to an agreement. I looked at her, the woman who had spent years telling me what I should be, what I owed them, what I wasn't allowed to dream for myself. Charles finally spoke, his voice low, rough. Adam was right, he said, lifting his eyes to mine. We were wrong. His words hung in the room, heavy, final. Grace looked up, tears streaking her face, her lips trembling. You're ruining everything, Han. Don't you care about us? About family? Family. That word felt sharp in my chest. I reached into my bag, pulling out the same folder Adam left for me, the folder that had kept me awake at night, that had given me strength when I thought I had none left. I placed it on the table, sliding it toward them. This is what Adam left, I said quietly. Not to hurt you. Not for revenge, but to protect what was ours. Margaret's lips trembled, her eyes glistening as she looked down at the folder. Grace sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking, the fight draining out of her. I leaned back, letting the silence fill the room, letting them feel the weight of what they had tried to take, of what they had lost. The world outside moved on, the city alive with the news of the marina expansion, the whispers of deals, the promise of a future that no longer belonged to them. David closed the folder gently, looking at me with calm eyes before turning back to them. The city has made contact, he said. They're ready to negotiate the purchase of the slip rights. The words settled in the quiet, a new beginning waiting in the space between us. Grace's head snapped up, her eyes wide, raw with tears and disbelief. What does that mean? She demanded, her voice hoarse. You're selling the slip. You're selling it to them. Margaret reached for her hand, but Grace pulled away, standing so quickly her chair scraped across the floor. Is that what you wanted, Hannah? To humiliate us? To ruin everything? I stayed seated, breathing slowly, watching her unravel. It means the city sees the value Adam saw, I said calmly. It means Morning Light will always have a place here, even if you don't. Grace let out a strangled laugh, tears streaming down her face. My wedding is in 2 months. Everyone knows we were taking the yacht out. Everyone saw me say it was mine. Her voice cracked, her shoulders shaking. What am I supposed to tell them now? Margaret's face was pale, her lips moving like she was trying to find the right words, but nothing came out. Charles finally lifted his head, his voice low, the defeat in it sharp. Adam was right, he said, looking at me with tired eyes. We were wrong. We should have left it alone. Grace turned to him, eyes wild. Don't say that, don't you dare take her side now. It's not about sides, Charles said, shaking his head slowly. It's about what's right. Grace fell back into her chair, burying her face in her hands, her sobs filling the room. Margaret reached across the table, her hand trembling as she touched the edge of the folder David had closed moments before. Please, Hannah, she whispered. We can't undo what's been done, but we can move forward. We can find a way to make this work. Her eyes met mine, pleading. For the first time, there was no command in her voice, only fear and regret. I opened the folder again, pulling out the top document, sliding it across the table toward them. Adam didn't do this to hurt you, I said softly. He did it to protect what mattered to us. Margaret's eyes filled with tears as she looked down at Adam's handwriting in the margins, the notes he made, the plans he had drawn. This isn't revenge, I continued, my voice steady. This is protection. For the life we built. For what he wanted to leave behind. The silence was heavy, broken only by Grace's quiet crying and the soft tick of the clock on the wall. David cleared his throat, gently pulling a separate folder from his bag and placing it in front of me. The city's offer is substantial, he said, meeting my eyes. They're prepared to pay well above market value for the slip rights. Grace's head lifted, tears still clinging to her lashes. You can't take it, she whispered. You can't just take everything. I looked at her, seeing the fear in her eyes, the realization that her world was built on something she never truly owned. This was never yours to lose, I said quietly. David opened the folder, turning it toward me, the top page stamped with the city seal, the numbers clear, bold, and impossible to ignore. The future Adam promised was waiting right there in black and white. I reached forward, my fingers brushing the edge of the paper, feeling the weight of it, the promise of something new. David met my gaze, his voice quiet but certain. It's time to decide. The sea outside the window was calm, the light dancing across the water like a quiet promise. I picked up the pen, feeling the weight of it in my hand, the way it pressed into my fingers as I signed the agreement with the city. David watched, his eyes steady, his nod small but approving. The number on the page was more than I ever imagined, triple what the slip was worth when Adam first filed the papers, when we first dreamed about what this place could become. When it was done, I set the pen down, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The papers were gathered, stamped, sealed, and just like that, the future Adam protected was secured. David slipped the final document into his case, his hand firm on my shoulder as he spoke. "You did it, Hannah." I nodded, swallowing the tightness in my throat. We did. The next day, I stood in front of morning light, the paperwork in my hand, the dock quiet under my feet. The deal with the city closed, the funds transferred, and the first thing I did was call the broker my parents had used, offering to buy Morning Light back. They needed the money. Their debts had caught up with them, the loans they took against the sale that never happened. Their plans fell apart, and now they had no choice. I bought Morning Light back for less than they paid. I signed the papers in silence, sliding them back across the table, my hands steady, my heart steady, my promise to Adam kept. Emma was waiting outside, leaning against the railing, her phone in her hand, her smile quick and bright when she saw me. "Is it done?" she asked. "It's done," I said. She lifted her phone, showing me the screen, the video playing, Grace's voice, bright and sharp, bragging about her yacht, about her life. The comments underneath were brutal, mocking, tearing apart the lie she had built. "Princess with a fake yacht," Emma read aloud, shaking her head. "They're eating her alive." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Grace had vanished from social media, her profiles gone, the silence louder than any post she could have made. Margaret and Charles retreated to their small house, the one they never wanted to admit was all they could afford, their neighbors, watching, whispering. Meanwhile, Morning Light was mine again. Captain Mike pulled up in his truck, stepping out with a slow grin, the tools in his hands clanking softly. "Ready to get her back in shape?" he asked. "Yes," I said. We spent the next week cleaning, scrubbing the decks, checking the engines, polishing the wood until it gleamed under the afternoon sun. Emma took photos, videos, capturing the way the light hit the water, the way Morning Light came alive again. We replaced the ropes, checked the safety gear, tuned the radios, and stocked the small kitchen with fresh coffee just the way Adam liked it. Captain Mike worked quietly, his hands steady, his eyes warm every time he looked at me. The last thing I did was hang the photo of Adam on the wall inside the cabin, his smile bright, his eyes crinkled in that way that made me fall in love with him over and over. The boat rocked gently, the water, calm, the city alive around us, but here on Morning Light it was quiet, it was ours. I stepped out onto the deck, the breeze lifting my hair, the smell of salt and sunlight wrapping around me. Emma was tying off the ropes, her smile easy, her laughter quick as Captain Mike teased her about her knots. I moved to the helm, my hand resting on the wheel, feeling the smooth wood under my fingers. I looked out at the sea, the horizon wide and open, the world waiting. "We're home, Adam," I whispered. Emma stood a few feet behind me, the breeze lifting strands of her hair as she pulled them back under her cap. She didn't say anything, just watched the way I held the wheel, the quiet reverence in the space around us. Captain Mike stepped out from the cabin, wiping his hands on a rag, the scent of engine oil mixing with the salt air. He glanced at me, then at the horizon, and nodded once like he understood everything without a word spoken. "She's seaworthy," he said, his voice steady. "Engines hum like a dream. She's waiting." Emma walked to the edge of the deck, leaning against the rail, looking out at the calm water of San Marco Bay. The marina lights blinked slowly, reflections dancing across the water as small waves lapped against the hull. She closed her eyes, breathing in, letting the peace settle around her. I stepped back from the wheel, moving around the deck, letting my hand brush over the polished wood, the ropes neatly coiled, the clean rails catching the last glow of the afternoon sun. Each piece of this boat held a memory, each corner a moment I once thought I had lost forever. Emma turned toward me, her grin soft but real. "People are already asking about charter rides, Hannah. High-end clients. Weddings, private sunset sails. It's happening." I let out a breath, letting the warmth of her excitement sink into the place inside me that had been cold for so long. "It's what Adam wanted," I said. Captain Mike chuckled softly, shaking his head as he glanced around. Adam would have liked this. Watching people fall in love with the water. We started bringing boxes aboard, supplies. Emma carefully packed crisp white linens, carefully folded towels, small glass jars of wildflowers she picked up from the Saturday market. She placed a small bowl of lemons on the table in the galley, the bright yellow sharp against the warm wood. Captain Mike checked the navigation systems, muttering to himself, tapping dials, making small adjustments that only a man who loved the sea would notice. I followed him, watching his hands, remembering the times Adam and I would sit here together, his arm around my shoulder, the world open before us. As we worked, Emma slipped her phone from her pocket, showing me the latest comments on the video she had reposted. Grace's laughter echoed from the screen, the bright, arrogant claim of ownership over her yacht now, nothing more than a digital ghost. The comments scrolled quickly. She never owned it. Karma's a beautiful thing. Turns out it wasn't hers after all. I handed the phone back to Emma, shaking my head. Let her be, I said quietly. Emma nodded, slipping the phone away. She's not our problem anymore. We finished just as the sky turned soft pink, the sun sinking low, the water turning to ripples of gold and rose. Captain Mike stood at the bow hands on the rail, looking out toward the channel that led to open water. Emma lit a lantern and set it near the helm, the glow warm, flickering gently with the breeze. I moved back to the wheel, placing both hands on it this time, feeling the solid, steady weight under my palms. The boat shifted slightly with the tide, a gentle reminder of the freedom waiting beyond the breakwater. Behind me, Adam's photo hung in the cabin, the light catching his smile, the laughter in his eyes almost alive in the glow of the lantern. For a moment, it felt like he was standing beside me again, hand over mine, guiding me forward. Captain Mike turned, his voice soft but sure. Ready when you are, Hannah. I glanced at Emma, her eyes bright, reflecting the lantern's light, and she nodded once, her silent way of saying she was with me. The marina was quiet, the world holding its breath as the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon. The promise of tomorrow was there in the salt air, the rolling tide, the ready hum of the engine. Morning light was ours again. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to sail. The sun rose over San Marco, a soft pink and gold washing across the water as morning light eased out of the slip. Captain Mike was at the helm, steady hands on the wheel, eyes sharp as he guided her past the breakwater. The engine hummed beneath us, a comforting vibration, a promise in each breath of salt air. Emma moved around the deck barefoot, her camera in hand, capturing the light as it spilled across the polished rails, the way the wake fanned out behind us, the morning breeze lifting strands of her hair. I leaned against the rail, the wind brushing against my face, cool and clean, carrying the scent of salt and the faint aroma of coffee drifting from the galley. The world felt quiet, alive, the soft lapping of water against the hull like a heartbeat. As we cleared the channel, the bay opened wide before us, the city behind bathed in the glow of dawn, the skyline sharp against the lightening sky. Emma turned, her grin quick, bright. You ready to see them? I nodded, feeling the knot in my chest loosen as I looked toward the dock where a small group was gathering, waving, waiting. Old friends, customers who had once trusted Adam and me with their mornings, their anniversaries, their moments of quiet escape on the water. Captain Mike adjusted the throttle, guiding morning light in a slow, graceful arc as we approached, the sun glinting off the water, turning every ripple to liquid gold. Emma leaned over the rail, waving. Welcome aboard, I watched as they stepped onto the deck, laughter spilling into the morning air, hands reaching out to steady each other, faces bright with excitement. They brought pastries, thermoses of coffee, small gifts of flowers tucked into paper towels, the scent of cinnamon and warm bread filling the air. Mrs. Clark, who once celebrated her 50th anniversary on morning light, hugged me tight, her eyes shining. Adam would be so proud of you, Hannah. I swallowed hard, nodding, unable to speak for a moment, as the emotion tightened in my chest. Thank you, I managed. Captain Mike pulled us back from the dock, the engine thrumming softly, the water parting around us as we moved toward open water, the morning breeze lifting the world opening wide. Emma captured it all, her lens focusing on the smiles, the wind-blown hair, the quiet moments as people looked out over the bay, letting the morning light warm their faces. News had already spread, whispers turning to headlines, the story of the woman who refused to let her dreams be stolen, who protected what mattered even when it meant standing alone. I saw the articles shared, online messages from strangers who said it gave them hope, who said it made them believe in fighting for what they love. Grace was gone from social media, her account silent, her name fading into the background. Margaret and Charles retreated, no longer calling, no longer demanding, their voices finally quiet in my life. Morning light cut through the water, leaving a soft wake that shimmered in the rising sun. I walked to the helm, resting my hand on the wheel, feeling the steady, familiar warmth of it beneath my palm. Captain Mike stepped aside, nodding to me. "She's yours, Hannah." I took a deep breath, letting it fill me, letting the salt air and sunlight sink into every part of me that had been tired, afraid, waiting for this moment. Emma lowered her camera, watching me, a soft smile on her lips. "This is just the beginning," she said. I nodded, turning the wheel gently, guiding Morning Light toward the open sea, the world before us, wide, endless, waiting. The wind caught the edge of my hair as I steered Morning Light forward, the spray cool on my skin. Captain Mike adjusted the throttle, letting the boat pick up a gentle pace, the engine humming beneath us, smooth and steady. He gave me a small nod, stepping back, letting me guide her through the open bay. Emma leaned against the rail, her camera rolling, capturing the glow of dawn, reflecting off the water, the quiet smiles of the passengers as they took in the sunrise. She turned the lens toward me for a moment, her eyes bright, her grin quick, before she focused back on the horizon. We passed the edges of the marina, the city behind us bathed in pink and gold, the tall buildings reflecting light across the water. Small waves rippled behind us, leaving a soft trail as Morning Light moved forward, claiming the morning. A couple stood near the bow, holding hands, heads close together as they watched the sky brighten. A father lifted his daughter so she could see over the rail, her small laugh ringing out clear and bright in the morning air. Captain Mike moved beside me, his voice low, steady. "They're here because of you, Hannah. Because you didn't let it go." I kept my eyes on the water, the way it shifted under the growing light, calm, alive. "Because Adam didn't let it go," I said softly. He nodded, a small smile touching the edges of his lips. "He'd be proud." Emma moved back toward us, slipping her camera into her bag. "We're fully booked next weekend," she said, excitement in her voice. "People want to experience this. They want to be part of this story." I glanced at her, the wind lifting strands of her hair, the light catching in her eyes. "It's more than a story," I said. "It's a promise." She nodded, leaning against the rail, looking out over the water, letting the silence settle between us, comfortable, warm. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a notification flashing across the screen. An article shared and reshared, the headline clear: "Daughter reclaims her dream yacht, turns family betrayal into hope." I opened it, scanning the words, seeing Adam's name, seeing Morning Light's name, seeing the comments from people I would never meet, people who saw in this small victory a reason to fight for their own dreams. Grace's silence was louder than any apology. Margaret and Charles had faded into the background, their calls, stopping, their presence gone, leaving behind only quiet. Captain Mike moved back to check the instruments. Emma walking the deck to check on passengers, laughter and soft conversation drifting in the breeze. I stayed at the helm, letting Morning Light glide forward the bow, cutting cleanly through the water, the salt air fresh and alive. I thought about the nights Adam and I spent here, planning, dreaming, believing that a life built on something true could survive anything. I thought about how close I came to giving it up, how easy it would have been to let them take everything. But I didn't. And now Morning Light was alive, moving free the way we always meant it to be. I reached for the coffee thermos, Emma left by the helm, pouring a small cup, the steam rising warm against the cool morning air. I lifted it, letting the breeze brush across my face, the sun rising higher, bright and clear over San Marco Bay. I smiled, letting it fill me, letting the moment sink in, quiet and complete. "What would you have done if you were me?"